Welcome to episode 2 of Exactly Entertainment. Last week we talked about our favorite movies of all time. So I think it's only fair that today we talk about our favorite TV shows of all time. Derek, why don't you start us off with your number 5 pick?
All right, getting right into things. I like that. So, my number 5 pick. Remember, in these videos, we also always like to talk about in these podcasts that this isn't our top 5 best necessarily. These aren't the top 5 that we think are the best. These are our top 5 favorites. So, just the ones that we like the most. Yours are going to be different than ours. These are just our favorites. So, without further ado, number 5 is a show that I hold very near and dear to my heart, which is Arrow. Now, Matt, I know you're not a fan of Arrow,
This
but
is true.
yes, Arrow could have been higher on my list. But the last few seasons kind of fell off. If this show ended at season 5, even though season 5 was a bit of a cliffhanger, if it did end with season 5, I would have been more happy. Now, this is a show that brings a character from the comics that isn't as well known in the public eye, and it kind of brings him to the forefront in a way that's a little more realistic than other approaches. Arrow is about Oliver Queen, who is a rich playboy, kind of a jerk, and he actually ends up on a yacht, his father's yacht, with his girlfriend's sister, and they end up shipwrecking in the middle of the North China Sea and end up on an island named Lian So Oliver ends up on Lian and he is away from his city, Star City, for 5 years. So it's presumed he's on this island for 5 years and he just has to survive. So it's this rich kid who never had to do anything for himself really now has to survive on an island for 5 years. But that's not where the show picks up. The show picks up after these 5 years and it flashes back. So, at the same time as you have this main story of Oliver returning to his city with a new mission in mind and a new focus and a more mature personality, it also flashes back to the island. So, the first episode is a mix of his first day back and also his first day on the island. And the show progresses through Oliver turning into the Arrow and eventually the Green Arrow. And he has a hero's journey throughout the show, and it's great. The way that the show develops all the characters, because it has time to with 23 episode seasons, is amazing. The character development's really good. The villains of the show are amazing. Um, that's that. It's a great show for the first few seasons. It does fall off in the later ones, but it's a great show that you can get into and then kind of stop watching if you feel like it. It has a lot of good closure per season for the most part. A lot of the seasons are individual stories. And I would say it did bring it back around for season 8. I'd say season 8 was pretty good, which was its final season. Stephen Amell does a great job as the lead in this show, and the supporting cast is also great. The action's good. There's no, it doesn't look cheap at all, and the story's definitely there with the villains. Overall, solid show, one of my favorites, and it gets my number 5.
All right. My number 5 pick. It's not the same kind of show that you picked. It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Hands down, probably one of the funniest and most unique shows I've ever seen. So basically, I'm going to give a brief synopsis like you did.
Yeah.
It's about this group of people that owns a bar in Philadelphia, and they call themselves the Gang. And they are just terrible, terrible people. And they are so oblivious to it. And they come up with all these schemes and hijinks, and it's so, so funny. And it's almost cartoonish because each episode, sometimes it's like, it kind of like parodies or pays homage to different types of filmmaking in a way. Like they do one episode in season 9, I think. That's all done in one take. And they do just different kinds of things. They always are inventive, and it's just so funny. It walks the line of being offensive and not perfectly. It's so unique, and it's absolutely hilarious. So if anyone is looking for a good laugh, watch It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. Great characters, amazing humor, and it's different than any other sitcom. It's the perfect anti-sitcom. With sitcoms, you have shows that are hopeful, and they have like hilarious situations that the characters usually get out of. With this show, it's not hopeful at all, and the characters usually at the end of each episode or each season, they haven't changed at all, and sometimes they're even worse than before. So definitely one of my favorite shows. It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia.
Awesome. That was a nice, short and sweet explanation. Excellent. So, without further ado, shall we go to number 4?
Yes, indeed.
Now, this is a show for me. I'll do my number 4 here. So, this is a show that took me by surprise. A show that hasn't had much time to shine and will have more soon. And I think that's why it's a little bit lower than I even have trouble ranking it this low, just because I know its potential, but I can only rank what exists as of yet. And that's The Boys.
Mm-hmm.
This show is genius.
It's so good.
Smart, and it's so good, and it flips the superhero genre on its head. Now, this was written. The comics of this show, The Boys, that it's adapted from, is written by someone who hates superheroes. He doesn't like superhero stories. Now, as you saw in our last episode, I love a good superhero story, but I still thought this was amazing. I think this is a great superhero story by someone who hates superhero stories. Now, The Boys is a dark, very dark,
very dark, yeah,
on the DC characters. So it's basically if we had the DC characters, the Justice League in real life, what they would actually be like if they were owned by a company. They all had movie deals. They all had merchandise. They're there. They exist to make money first, and then second, save the world. So you don't see much of the saving the world part.
right.
That's all kind of PR and whatnot. It's mainly about these superheroes. Now, they're not good people. At least most of them are not. So their version of the Justice League, called the Seven, is basically all used to make money. And each of them are bad people in their own way. And they're all messed up in their own way, except one of our 2 main protagonists, I'd say, Annie January, or Starlight, is a new superhero who joins the Seven. And she has a good heart, really wants to do good, but she quickly finds out that the other members of the Seven are not the same way. They just want to help the company make money because it's more money in their pockets. And they love the fame and all that type of stuff. So after a tragic event in the pilot, a character named Hugh Campbell, who's a simple electronics shop worker. He just works at like a Best Buy type of thing, except like smaller
like
scale.
Radio Shack type
like
thing.
More of a Radio Shack type of thing. And that he's just a normal guy. And after a tragic event in the pilot, he grows a distaste for the Supes. And that's what they call the powered individuals, the superheroes. They call them the Supes. And he's approached by a character named Billy Butcher, who also has a traumatizing experience with the Supes. Now, Billy Butcher recruits Huey to go against these Supes and expose them for who they are, because some of them can take bullets, some of them are as fast as light, so you can't just fight them every time. So the best way to take them down is take down their reputation and get them locked away. So Huey finds himself joining a team of men called the Boys, led by Billy Butcher. And their mission is to shut down Vought, which is the company that owns the Seven, and expose them for their crimes and all their evil doings and collateral damage. On the other hand, as part of the Seven, you have Homelander. Now, Homelander is a dark Superman take and probably my favorite character on the show. He was raised in a laboratory instead of having a family, so he's very cold. He doesn't quite understand humanity. He sees himself as above humanity. Now, this causes a very interesting character dynamic, and the show really explores these characters and who they are. This is definitely, Matt, you'd probably agree, one of those shows you just have to watch. You have to be able to watch it. There's a lot of adult content in it, but it's very difficult to explain without seeing it. When I say Homelander, if you haven't seen the show, you might think that's kind of funny. There's another character called the Deep, which is like the Aquaman parody, which again just sounds funny. And you have Lamplighter, Queen Maeve, just to name a few. A-Train, which is the Flash parody. The show, you really have to watch it. It's a very dark take on superheroes, and they do a very good job of delivering it. And that's kind of my favorite part, is they build this great universe and they do really good world building of a dark superhero universe, but then they build these characters up within it. And that storyline is just so good. The show has such a strong footing with its concept that it's just destined to have great seasons, and everything we've seen so far is great. Season 2 is coming out soon, and I cannot wait to see more of The Boys. It is a great show with great characters in a great world with great concepts. Couldn't go wrong.
I completely agree with that. At a time where there are like dozens of superhero movies coming out a year,
Yep.
and a lot of them follow a similar formula, this is the perfect time for a superhero satire to come out. And the show, it can be incredibly dark and dramatic, and it has one of my favorite finales to any season ever.
Mm-hmm.
Like you said, I think Homelander is brilliant and portrayed to perfection by Anthony Starr. And it's really funny at times, and it gets super dark, super fast. And like you said, I didn't include it on my list only because it's only had one season.
Yeah, it's hard.
But if the quality of the show continues, it's definitely going to find its place on my list.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So my number 4 pick is a show that some people might disagree with, and that's The Walking Dead. I love The Walking Dead. I've watched it for years. Derek's making a face right now because well, you watched it too, Derek, and a lot of people did at one point long ago. It had better ratings Sunday night than football, which is unheard of. Most people say it peaked around like season 6, and it jumped the shark with the season 7 premiere.
How the mighty have fallen.
But I still love the show. Season 8 definitely took a dip in quality, but I think season 9 was amazing, one of the best of the series. And season 10, even though the finale was delayed due to the coronavirus, season 10 has been strong too. And it's one of those shows where I followed it for so long that I care about all these characters that I can't really just fall off it. I can't stop watching.
Yeah.
And regardless of what people think of these later seasons, the first 6 and the first episode of season 7, the first 6 seasons are incredible. They are so well made. Great acting, especially by Andrew Lincoln.
Yes.
Sorry, there's a pizza man at my house right now. Apologize for the dogs barking. But and the special effects with the zombies, and at times when it seems like there's millions of them, these so-called hordes of zombies. It's zombies have always been like a supernatural, outlandish genre, and this show really kind of makes that realistic. And it has incredible world building and even better characters. And the way similar to The Boys, like good people, so, depending on the world, good people can kind of turn and do bad things.
Yeah.
So it's a fascinating world to view, and with great characters, great action, and a great story. So Walking Dead is my fourth favorite show.
Yeah. I love The Walking Dead. Well, I did for, like you said, the first 7 seasons. I also feel like I'm on board for the ride, but it's some weeks it feels a little bit like a chore to tune in. But there's good payoffs. It's still The Walking Dead in the end. And it still has the quality. The show's quality when it comes to production has not gone down at all. It's still a high quality show, and I'm still on board for it. I'm still on for the rest of the ride.
My only flaw with The Walking Dead, and it's not even with The Walking Dead, it's with AMC, the channel that runs it, is that it's tried so hard to make it this everlasting thing. It has 2 spin-off shows, which I don't watch. Well, one of them hasn't aired yet, but
right,
it keeps trying to branch out and be more than it is.
Yeah.
And because it's such a great world-building show, they want to explore more of this world. And I think that isn't a good idea because they need to finish The Walking Dead first.
Yeah.
They try to have these simultaneous shows, but excluding that, I do love The Walking Dead for what it is. So yeah.
Yeah.
I'll end it there.
I'll quickly move to my third. Number 3 for me is The Office. I love The Office. The characters are so lovable. The circumstances are so funny. I've laughed. I've cried. It's a show that really makes you fall in love with these characters without you realizing it. And then once you kind of step back from the show, you're like, yeah, these characters are so good. And the acting is so good. You can just tell the chemistry on set. I mean, what can I say about The Office that hasn't already been said?
Right.
It's definitely one of the most esteemed sitcoms and comedy shows in general. And it's just one of my favorites. The characters really carry it. The stories are funny. The circumstances are always funny. And the acting is always top notch. Same with the writing. So for me, that show fell off a little bit at the end when Michael left, but I still enjoyed it right through the end. There was never a point where I wanted to stop watching. I watched it straight through the end.
Right. This is perfect because my number 3 is also The Office.
Oh.
So we can kind of talk about this simultaneously.
Yeah, go ahead.
I completely agree with everything you said. And I love how a majority of the cast are producers and writers. So they have control about their characters, and that kind of blends in with the chemistry. And that's why it has such strong characters. It's so funny. It has a lot of heart to it. And like you said, a lot of people don't like season 8 and 9. I'm not a huge fan of season 9, but I really did love season 8. Robert California, I think one of the most underrated characters in the entire show.
Our Ultron there.
Yeah. It's a very funny show. And like you said, it makes you laugh, makes you cry. It's the first show that ever made me cry. And I'm not ashamed to admit it because it's a great show.
Yeah. Yeah. All
and
right.
Steve Carell is amazing at what he does. And he's perfect as Michael Scott.
Yeah. My number 2 is a show that I got into this year. I don't know how I missed this show the past few years, but it's Ozark, man. This show is amazing. It's probably, I'm still in the middle of another great show, but it's probably the best show I've ever seen. The best story, the best quality, the best acting I've ever seen. It's not my favorite because my number one is just so special to me, but Ozark's definitely the best show I've seen as of yet. I'm in the middle of some really good shows, but Ozark has been amazing. It's about this man, Marty Bird, who makes a fatal decision to launder money for a Mexican drug cartel. Now, this decision comes to haunt him years later. We find out he's been doing this for a long time, but circumstances force him into a harder situation where he has to move, and he has to make more money and launder more money and launder it quicker. So Marty moves to the Ozarks, and he finds his way around local businesses, trying to find ways to launder for them. And we find that the people in the Ozarks are very unique people. Everyone has a stick. No one's like you don't see just average people you would expect you don't see your average families. You see the Langmores, who are kind of these people who live in trailers, and they're kind of, some of them are like high school dropouts. They kind of are just getting by. You have all different families. You have Buddy, who they move in with, and
The Snells.
you have the Snells, absolutely, who are these rednecks, although they wouldn't like it if
Do
you
not call them
never
rednecks.
call them that to their face. But they have a farm, and they produce drugs there, and they're all crazy people, a lot of them. And a lot of events go down, clashes between Marty and these people, him trying to launder this money in time without crossing the interests of the people in this community, and tensions rise. I've never had a higher blood pressure and been more stressed out during a show other than I have Ozark. The stakes, the acting, the fight scenes between Jason Bateman's character, Marty Bird, and his wife, the acting during those scenes where they argue, they fight with each other, are so good. Everything with the cartel being ominous and them driving black SUVs around, scaring people and looking intimidating. Everything we saw so far has been great. The first 3 seasons have been amazing, season 3 being the best, and I cannot wait to see season 4 soon. That's all I have to say about Ozark for now.
So my number 2 is Ozark.
Oh,
I completely agree with everything you just said. Ozark, I watched it when the first season came out, and I loved it. I'm a huge fan of Jason Bateman. And I don't know what it is, but these comedy actors, they are brilliant drama directors. John Krasinski, Jordan Peele, now Jason Bateman, Emmy award-winning director for the show.
Yeah.
It's so good. The characters are amazing, and everyone is an anti-hero. There's no perfect, clean character, and I love that about the show. Even the color in the show, everything's dark. It's dirty. It's so good. Netflix. It knows how to throw money at a show.
Yeah.
This show, it looks like a movie. It's so well directed. The cinematography is great, and like you said, Jason Bateman, Laura Linney, Julia, oh my God, plays Ruth. Julia Gardner.
Yeah, I think so. Is that
She's amazing.
She's really good.
And I love season 1. Like I said, I watched it when it came out, and it was great. And season 2, I watched it with my mom, and due to scheduling conflicts, we fell off it. And then I heard the buzz about season 3 coming out, so we finished season 2. We were hooked again, and we crushed season 3 in 2 days.
Wow.
Season 3, with the exception of one other show, some of the best TV I've ever seen. The amount of tension that's filled in every episode, it's the perfect show to binge watch, because like you can't breathe. They have
No.
so many elements that blend so well together. And there's a new character introduced in season 3. I'm not going to get into it. Just absolutely amazing. And I am so mad that this actor was not nominated for an Emmy this year.
Yeah.
I'm furious. I don't understand it. But
Yeah.
anyway, it's so well made. There are things in season 1 and season 2 that blend so well together in season 3, and it's really amazing TV.
Yeah. I
Once
mean,
again, apologies for my dog barking. It's kind of obnoxious.
yeah, once again, I fell in love with the character of Marty Byrde so early on
Yeah,
during a specific scene. And the scene I'm talking about when he first encounters the Langmores, really,
yeah,
and he talks them down. And that was definitely still to this day my favorite scene in the show. Nothing topped that, in my opinion. I love that scene so much, and that's really what got me hooked and kept me on. It
yeah.
was so good.
I
Well,
think Jason Bateman and Laura Linney are more than deserving of the Emmy this year. And if
absolutely.
they don't win, I'm going to be furious.
Yeah, me
So
too. I have to start a riot.
yeah,
Shall we go to our honorable mentions?
yeah,
All right. These are going to be quicker for me. My first one's The Flash. Now, The Flash could not make my top 10 or top 15. Maybe the top 15. Maybe the top 15. But probably not the top 10. Now, The Flash, season 1 and season 2 were amazing. Season 3 started to fall off. Season 4 lost me. I still watched season 5 and 6, but I was on my phone the whole. I couldn't stay through it. They would. The Flash is such a great character in the comics, and there's so many things they could do, but due to TV show budgets and having to craft a proper 23 episode story, they had to constantly throw these unfair obstacles in Barry Allen, the Flash's way. His speed gets taken away. He's losing his speed. He can get this one thing that can stop him from running fast. They tried to nerf him too much, and it just fell off. The story honestly worked best as an origin story, a year 1, year 2, around year 3 type of Flash. But after that, he got too powerful, and the story just wasn't as good. But
it's
the
sad
first,
when that happens to a show,
it
and
is
they botch it.
when they have such a good start. It's not like The Walking Dead that made it 6 seasons. It had such a strong start, but then towards its middle of its life cycle, and it's still going on now, it just fell off. It just couldn't sustain the energy and the characters and the quality of the first 2 seasons. And that's why, since those first 2 seasons are so good, if it kept that up, it would be on my top 5. That's why I made my honorable mentions.
Yeah.
And my
23 episodes of 45-minute dramas. It's way too much.
It's too much, especially for something so special effects heavy.
Yeah.
They couldn't sustain it. They really couldn't. There were filler episodes because they'd have to show ones where the Flash literally isn't the Flash because they can't afford to do the lightning and all the crazy CGI every episode. If they did things more like, like The Boys, where it's only 8 episodes, or even 10 to 13, like Ozark and whatnot, I think they would have found a lot more success, especially in the later seasons. But speaking of another short movie quality show, my other honorable mention is The Mandalorian. This show, like Star Wars always has, is using bleeding edge technology. That Baby Yoda puppet, I forget what the technology is called, but they use screens that are in real time, the
It's,
background. Using
Unreal Engine
Unreal
software
Engine, right?
on.
They use it in video games. The Unreal Engine, um, it's real time green screens pretty much, and it is insane the way they make this. Star Wars has always pushed the envelope, as they say, as to the latest technology in filmmaking, and The Mandalorian is no exception. The story's really good, the characters are really good, the acting's really good, and it's just a very wholesome story of the Mandalorian and he finds someone to care for. And instead of just making money, he finds a bigger purpose. Very Clint Eastwood, very Western, and I'm all for it. I love it so far. Can't wait to see what's next. Same thing. The Boys squeezed into my top 5 just because I think it's that good. But this one, I need to see more to get it up there. I'm very excited for season 2. Can't wait to see more.
Yeah, Emmy nominated for best drama.
Yeah,
That was actually really surprising to me.
I agree.
With all the good TV this year, I was
Yeah.
kind of shocked that made the cut. But
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you like The Mandalorian more than I do. I still really enjoy it, but I mean the technology that they've used on the show, it is incredible.
That's part of what brought it in the honorable mentions.
Yeah. For my honorable mentions, I have 3 because I'm a very indecisive person when it comes to film and TV.
This was tough.
Honorable mention, Daredevil. I'm still not over the fact. Oh, did you forget about that one, Derek?
Oh no.
Yeah, I'm still not over the fact it got canceled. As much as I love Netflix, they tried to hurt Disney, but Disney can't be stopped. They just ended up hurting the fans. Season 3 of Daredevil, I don't know what it is about Netflix and the 3rd season. It's usually the best of every show. Season 3 of Daredevil, I mean, season 1 was great. Season 2, kind of like Ozark. Well, I mean, Ozark was great all around, but season 2 kind of fell a little bit. I think the first half of it was really strong. The back half of it kind of dipped in quality, but season 3 was amazing throughout. I love the character of Daredevil. I think the acting is great. The production value is great. Just everything. The writing, it's a very, very good show. And I hope that they bring back Charlie Cox in the role of Daredevil somewhere in the MCU.
Yeah.
Because he does such an amazing job. It would be a huge mistake to recast him. So Daredevil, once again, on Netflix, amazing show. Number 2, not that they're ranked, but my second honorable mention, Game of Thrones. Everybody knows about the show. If you've seen it, you know why. It's incredible. Similar to Netflix, HBO, they know how to throw money at a show. Movie quality episodes. And the writing is so smart. Season 8, the last season, infamously known for upsetting just about everybody. But the first, especially the first 4 seasons, the rest of the show is amazing. The acting, especially by Peter Dinklage, who was the most Best Supporting Actor Emmys of anyone, and deservedly so. He's amazing in that role. And the choreography and the direction, it's so good. There's an episode in season 5, for anyone listening that knows it, Battle of the Bastards. One of my favorite episodes of any TV show ever. It's so good. And the story, it's I've never been a fantasy person that much. And the first season, it's like a different language. It's so hard to grasp. There's Westeros, this new country, and there's King's Landing and Winterfell, all these kingdoms and kings. It's hard to follow, but once you get it, it's addicting. It really is, and it's an incredible show, even on a technical standpoint. Right. So yeah, I do have one more honorable mention.
Go ahead.
We usually stick to 2, but I had to throw a third one in here, and that's The Shield. The Shield. I love this show so much. I didn't watch it live because I think it came out in 2002 maybe, or it was 2005, something around there. But this show was amazing. It actually paved the way for The Walking Dead because network TV usually didn't have adult content, and The Shield really, like you said, to use that expression, it pushed the envelope. It's so gritty. It's about this police force, the strike team in LA that they do some questionable things. They get a little bit power hungry, and it's such a smart show. And I think it has one of the best finales to any show I've ever seen. It's perfect. It has great characters. and great stories. There are things that happen in season 1 that affect every single episode, and that's something like Ozark that it's really rare in shows that have so much detail. And yeah, those are my honorable mentions.
All right. I will go to my number one. I'm going to try to contain myself here. Now, this show is by no means the best show I've ever seen. In fact, I don't think it would reach the top 3, maybe not the top, probably not even the top 5 for the best best shows out there. But it is definitely, without a doubt, unquestionably, my number one favorite show of all time. And it always will have a special place in my heart. That is Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is the most character-driven show I've ever seen. It relies so little on story comparatively to characters. The story's great, but it really leans in to the strengths and weaknesses of these characters. And you see these people in this huge Marvel world that we know about. Now, when this show first came out, it was right after the first Avengers movie. Everyone was on that rush of Avengers. And you now get to see what normal civilians think of all this that's happening. It focuses around a group of S.H.I.E.L.D. agents, including a resurrected Agent Coulson. That's in the trailer. Agent Coulson's resurrected, and there's a lot about that storyline throughout the entirety of the show. His death to this final season. I watched an episode of the final season last night. There's 2 more episodes. And to this point, Coulson's death in the Avengers movie is still playing a factor. It is still referenced on an often basis, and it's still a very pivotal part of the show. These characters are so good. You have Melinda May, who is the cavalry, is what they call her. She is this badass, like Black Widow-like character who at first doesn't like to fight that much because of what happened in her past. And she comes on as just their pilot, but you soon see that she triumphs over her trauma and continues to fight with the team. You have Agent Ward, Grant Ward, who is very reluctant to work as a team, in a team. He is a solo kind of specialist who is used to doing everything on his own, and now he has to work with a team. You have Fitz and Simmons, who are these 2 S.H.I.E.L.D. scientists who are just my favorite ship out of any couple in TV. They're the best. Their whole storyline is so wholesome, and Coulson's definitely my favorite character. Clark Gregg does an amazing job, but I wanted to save this character for last, and this is Skye. Now, Skye is, at the beginning of the show, a member of this group called the Rising Tide. Now, the Rising Tide, they saw what happened in the Avengers movie. They saw aliens invade their world. Everyone's lives are changed forever. And the Rising Tide just wants to know more. They're like a not cyber terrorist group, but they want to expose the CIA's information, the government's information, S.H.I.E.L.D.'s information, and S.H.I.E.L.D. goes after them. And Skye, they kind of take Skye in, and she kind of proves to be helpful to them. And she kind of finds a place on this team of her own. And the character development with all these characters throughout the seasons, they go from normal S.H.I.E.L.D. endeavors fighting Hydra, just like you'd expect in any S.H.I.E.L.D. story. They go to fighting Inhumans eventually and finding more out about the Inhumans. You have a rotating cast that comes in and out with cameos of even Nick Fury, Samuel L. Jackson's Nick Fury in the show. The show eventually goes to space and even time travel, and the journey that these characters have been on and the family environment they create is unrivaled in any show I've ever seen. And I've been there since day one. I've watched every single episode, season by season, pretty much. I was there for day one, and I'll be there in 2 weeks for the finale. Amazing show. Go ahead.
All right. So, this is going to take a long time because you've witnessed firsthand how much I love this show. My favorite show of all time is Breaking Bad. Oh my God. This show is so perfect. Like you said, it's about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. It's the most character-driven show I've ever seen. So if you don't know what it is, it's about this high school chemistry teacher, Walter White. He's this milquetoast, just regular person. Doesn't have his own voice. He's shy. He doesn't really have, outside of his family, he doesn't have that much. And you understand why as the show goes on. But he is diagnosed with lung cancer. Feeling defeated and concerned about his family's well-being, he decides to cook crystal meth to make money so he'll leave something for his family. That's a sad premise.
It is.
But this show, Vince Gilligan, the creator and director of a lot of the episodes, genius. He's so smart. Aside from the premise, this show is so good. His pitch for the show was take Mr. Chips, this regular guy, and by the end of the show, turn him into Scarface. And if you don't know the show and you hear the name Walter White, you're like, oh, whatever. But if you've seen the show and you hear the name Walter White, you think of I'm not going to spoil anything, but you think of a very different person than most people would. It's really funny in the beginning, and it's funny throughout the show. It has a lot of great humor in it, but it's the most dramatic show I've ever seen. And it's a lot like Ozark. Ozark has taken a lot from Breaking Bad and changed it. But the thing that they have in common, Ozark is going to have one more season and end at season 4. Breaking Bad, it knew when to stop. And that's a lot of problems with like Walking Dead and Game of Thrones.
Flash.
It's in the Flash. It's hard to keep a certain level of quality through a long time. And Breaking Bad, it ended at the perfect time. The final season and the final few episodes are the best of any show I've ever seen. And I know you have your issues with Rian Johnson, Derek, but if you wait and you see the episode Ozymandias, the best episode of any show I've ever seen, it's so good. And there are so many plot threads that come together and weave perfectly. It's my favorite show. The acting is incredible. Bryan Cranston, he's gotten so much praise for the show, and he deserves every ounce of it. He is so good. And everything in the show makes sense, and that's my favorite part about it. You see Walter White, and the more the show goes on, you understand why he does the things he does. He doesn't have a lot of pride. You find out why he doesn't have a lot of pride. He doesn't have a lot of money. He's just a man who wants to take care of his family and who doesn't have really anything to be proud of outside of that. And Aaron Paul is Jesse Pinkman. Oh my God. He's just as good as Bryan Cranston.
Yeah.
And he shines in this role. He's so good. He plays a former student of Mr. White who ends up dealing meth. He's a typical kind of stoner guy who just deals meth, doesn't really have a lot going on for him. And Walter White teams up with Jesse Pinkman, and they go out on their own adventure, and they start cooking and dealing crystal meth. Again, with Jesse, so much goes on, and it all makes sense. And like I said with The Shield, things that happen in the first episode in the first season, it comes back in the finale, and it just makes so much sense. Ozymandias, I think it's season 5, episode 14. It's breathtaking in terms of directing, the acting especially. Best acting of any show I've ever seen. And The supporting cast with Bob Odenkirk as Saul, who eventually got his own spinoff, which is another amazing show. Almost made it on my list. And Giancarlo Esposito as Gus. So good. He's incredible. I know you just started watching the show, Derek.
Mhm.
I'm not going to spoil anything, but he is amazing in that role. And the acting on everyone is so good. It's such a detailed story. And I'm going to shut myself up there because I know I've talked about it at our lunch table. I've gone on rants for hours along with Roman. It's one of those shows where once you start watching it, you just have to talk about it because it's all you're thinking about, especially in the later seasons, season 4 and 5. It's amazing. So that is my favorite show of all time, Breaking Bad.
Yeah. I mean, I started the show last week. I'm on season 2. Like I said, or like you said, you were talking about it a lot.
I wouldn't shut up about it. I'll admit it. I'm one of the people where if I see something I like, I obsess over it, and I talk about it with everyone. I'll see people on the street, I'll stop them, I'll grab them by the shoulders and say, "Hey, are you watching Breaking Bad?"
Yeah.
And they're like, "Dude, that show ended like 5 years ago." Like, of course I've seen it. I'm like, "Well, did you rewatch it?" And they're like, "Yeah, of course." And I stop them, even though they're on their way with their busy day. I interrupt them and I say, "Can we talk about it?"
Yeah.
It's just one of those shows.
It is. Well, I cannot wait to watch more of that because I love it. I love what I've seen so far. I really can't give you a reason why I never started it before. Didn't really have any excuses, but now is the time. Can't wait to continue to watch it, and I'm sure it will breach my top 5. Well, Matt, we had a great discussion today. Some great shows. That's all we have for you guys today. Anything to say before we close off?
Um, no.
Not
I think
today.
I've said everything I've wanted to say. So
Enough said.
it has been a pleasure. Good to know what shows you love the most.
Of course.
And
Do me a
yeah,
favor, Matt,
yes,
and just like watch a little bit of Agents of Shield. Just a
I'll
little.
uh I'll consider it. I got a lot of shows going on.
All I ask for is your consideration.
I
All
will.
right.
All right, I will consider it.
Yes. All right. We will see you all on the next episode of the Exactly Entertainment podcast. Thanks for watching.
Adios.